Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all of the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Taco Tuesday. Hit that button over there, buddy.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's Taco Tuesday!
Speedy Gonzalez. That is, by the way, Big Rig back on the board. Hey, man, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. Glad you're back.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to go away anymore.
I'll try not to.
Okay. Good enough. No, we had a good day. Butters here yesterday. He stood in for you quite well. He's great and handy to have around, but we're glad you're back.
Yeah, thank you.
We got a great show laid on for you. So at 2:30, coming up here in just a little bit, Malia Stevens, she and I were texting back and forth this morning about the status of House Bill 167. That's the bill that is like way too easy. Like, why are you not doing this? Why is it not finished? This is the bill that literally just says, hey, those porn filters that already exist inside your phone from the factory, they get turned on. That's it. When you buy a phone, they just go on, and that's it. Whole thing. That way kids are not stumbling onto porn unless the parents want to turn it back off. Anyway, we'll talk to Malia Stevens, get a feel for that, because there's only, by the way, 2 days left in the session, including today. And then at 4 p.m. today, let me make a correction on that, 4 p.m. today, John Rogers, who is a longtime friend of mine who now works with a national polling organization called Signal Polling and Analytics. John Rogers will be on with us at 4 p.m., giving us the latest numbers on where we stand in the whole world of, presidential races. Like, who's really zooming who right now? Like, where are we in terms of the numbers, how they flesh out overall? John Rogers, 4 o'clock today. You might want to hear it. And then I got the whole triple dipper. So hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. So first out the gate, lawfare. We're going to talk about the Trump trials, all of them, all of them. That could take 3 hours, really. But the Trump trials, lawfare, the attempt to derail his entire life, not just his presidency, with abuses of the legal system. We'll talk about it. Lawfare, number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, this is interesting. Blowing the shofar. Some of y'all out there automatically knew what I'm talking about. The shofar, the traditional ram's horn that is blown in Israel. Blowing the shofar. Well, yesterday I saw a video of Israeli troops gathered around. Their rabbi was praying for them, and then he blew the shofar before they went into battle. And I thought, well, there's the name of the Dipper. So I've got an update for you on what's happening over there, because, y'all, it is ramping up in a big, big way. Blowing the shofar, that's number 2. And then number 3, in conjunction with that conversation with John Rogers from Signal Polling, I'm doing by the numbers. I've got by the numbers what they say, but I've also got some other information that may not be in their hands. Like, I've got a copy right now of how Biden compares to every president pretty much over the last century at this time in their presidency. And he's epically behind every single one of them. Just saying. But yeah, we'll talk about it by the numbers, number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on in here to my Rightside Way monologue, and I'll remind you guys that the Rightside Way monologue every single day, sponsored for you by Southern Immediate Care. Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics that covers a huge swath of ground across our overly broad listening area. Southern Immediate Care in places like Gadsden, Anniston, Atala, 6 more locations around the Birmingham area. Southern Immediate Care is open 7 days a week in all locations. It will see all ages, and it is the daily sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue, and we're glad of it. All right, here we go. Let me start by just asking you guys an age-old question. I'm sure some of you have asked it yourself. Here's the question. Why does God allow some things to happen? That's it. That's my question. Why does God allow some things to happen? Why? Does he ignore some things? Does he not see them coming? Well, I would say no to both of those questions. I mean, if he's a God that can be described as ignorant or a God who can be surprised, then he's not really a God. I choose to believe that he, with a capital H, is God with a capital G. Nothing catches him off guard. Nothing goes unnoticed. Nothing is without intention. So then, if those things are true, then I have to believe that that means things happen for a reason. It's a logical matter of both heart and mind. He is God, therefore there is purpose. So why don't I always get it? I mean, why do I find myself, like I'm sure many of you have been, questioning his purposes? I mean, what's up, God? Why would you allow that? Is there a purpose? Is there a lesson? I once had a friend tell me there may be some things we just won't know until we get to heaven and we sit down with Jesus over a cup of coffee, because I feel certain they have coffee in heaven. And he looks at us and says, okay, let me tell you about that day and why it mattered. But there are some things that are what they are and happen when they happen because his design is also bigger than ours. I have to trust that he has a really good reason. So I could spend all day talking about this. We could go back and forth on issues like pain and crime and financial hardship and health issues, you name it. But let me just focus in for a minute and talk about God's timing. Like, why does God allow things to happen in certain timing? Timing as in why things happen when they do. Specifically, why it sometimes seems like, I don't know, God's late to the party. The only way I can do that, though, is to be transparent for a minute and tell you guys a personal story. So here we go. So Charlene and I have been married for 37 years. She's a very patient woman. Early in our marriage, I was in full-time ministry with an organization called Young Life. In the early 90s, we moved to Georgia, but a year later, that position ended and Young Life decided to move us to Gadsden, where we live now. But we had a house in Georgia. We had already stepped out on faith and bought our first house. And it was a beautiful little house in a good neighborhood, close to all the things that make it a desirable location. So the move came. We put the house on the market, but the new job was already starting, so a good friend of mine gave me some office space, or gave me some space above his office in Gadsden, and I came over here to work while Charlene and the kids stayed in Georgia trying to sell the house, thinking surely it was going to sell soon. But then time went on, and on, and on. Nearly a year later, the house still hadn't sold. Well, we were young and living on a very small ministry paycheck. We could only afford one house, not two. Why was God taking so long? I mean, weren't we doing his work? We decided enough is enough. We took the house off the market and we found a family who wanted to rent it. So for the next 7 months, they were late on the rent every single time. And then 8 months into our 2-year contract, they walked out and bought the house across the street and accused me of not being Christian enough for understanding that they needed to do something different. Well, suddenly our one-house budget had 2 houses to pay for. We did all we could. We listed the house for sale again. The realtor was mystified why it wouldn't sell. 6 months later, Charlene and I talked and prayed and decided we had no other choice but to tell the bank that we were going to have to let them foreclose on us. So yeah, I called the banker and we had that conversation, and then we waited. To say that I was mad at God might be an understatement. I was trying to do everything right, God. I was trying to be where you wanted me to be. Where are you on this? But then I finally settled into the realization that I can't just trust him when things are easy. That's not trust. Trust really only comes when there's a risk involved. Jeremiah 29 tells me that God actually does have a plan, a specific plan. It's as if he's got a file cabinet and there's a file in it with my name on it and a plan inside that file that's already mapped out. So Charlene and I, we trusted him and we waited. And then my phone rang. A friend of mine called and said that he and his dad like to invest in real estate. He heard that we had a house in Georgia, and they both had the idea that maybe they ought to buy it because maybe it was hard on us and maybe they could sell it. But would I let him buy it? Yes. Turns out my friend and his dad, who had no real knowledge of what Charlene and I were going through, just had this idea, just a thought. Well, a year and a half after we moved to Gadsden, my friend and his dad bought that house sight unseen. 3 days later, somebody made them an offer for exactly what we had been asking for a year and a half, and they sold it. Look, I did a lot of looking back on that one, trying to figure out what God was doing. I would have been happy if he had sold it right away, I would have been happy and glad not to have a year away from Charlene and the kids. But I never would have experienced the depth of relief that comes from actually trusting him in the middle of a crisis, trusting him to give me some light in the middle of the darkness if he had just rushed in and fixed things right away. I have leaned on that story many times, and for some reason, I felt compelled to tell it to you today. But here's what I know. Here's what I believe. I believe God never wastes time. He never wastes time. He can measure time, he can make use of time, and occasionally he bides his time, but he never wastes time. His timing in that whole debacle of a house situation in Georgia, his timing was the lesson for us then. Sometimes we know on the front end why things are the way they are. Like, a soldier leaving for war, he knows why he's leaving. But sometimes we have to remain actively aware of what the reason might be and search it out. And the lesson might be because the why is not evident, therefore trust is necessary. Maybe the lesson is the trust. God's timing never matches mine. I'm sure you've all heard the story of Lazarus being raised from the dead by Jesus. He was called on, Jesus was, to come quickly because his good friend Lazarus was gravely ill. We're told, though, that even after he got word, Jesus, who had already been healing people, he lingered for several days before going, and by the time he arrived, his friend Lazarus was already dead and laid in the tomb. If he had just gotten there sooner, they said. But if he had come sooner, they never would have seen a man miraculously brought back to life. You see, his timing was part of it. But before I go, I got to mention this, because you need to know this, God is not indifferent or callous. He doesn't just take his timing into account and ignore that it might be hard on us while we wait. If you look back at that story about Lazarus, you'll find the only place in Scripture where we know that God wept because he saw the pain and the anguish of friends who had lost their brother Lazarus. But then the plan came together, and man, did they have a party. So God's timing and my timing, they don't usually line up, right? But his timing always works out better. I am impatient by nature. I don't like to wait, but I do enjoy the party at the end. God never wastes time. So hang in there, y'all. God's timing is perfect. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Well, there you have it. And yes, I do believe it. God never wastes time. His timing's perfect. His timing just doesn't usually match ours. And I'm usually impatient and trying to figure out why. But the reality is he cares. He's got a plan. Work the plan, y'all. Sometimes it involves patience. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Like making common sense like a superpower. All right, we're going straight to the phone, straight to the text line. I've got text line is 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it, same for both. Let's see here. Paula from Lacey Springs says, my experience has been that God sometimes waits till the last minute to rescue me, which spurs me to thoroughly exercise my faith muscles, which then further strengthens me for the next trial that will come. He's always faithful and glorified in the process. There you go, Paula. Thank you. And you are so correct. JP from Priceville says, absolutely awesome monologue. Our God is sovereign, and many times we will not understand this world situation until we are in his presence and glory. Enough said. I agree, man. And by the way, that little like mental picture that someone gave us, I think actually it was a sweet lady who said this to Charlene, but Charlene told me, and it stuck with me for years, is that sometimes we won't know things until we sit down with Jesus over a cup of coffee in heaven, and he goes, now listen, about that day, that's going to be a good day. And a good cup of coffee. Richard from Madison says, I'm in tears right now in the Lowe's parking lot. Well, thank you, brother. Said your monologue, wow. He said your monologue was what I needed to hear after having a severely trying day. I need to suck it up, trust God through the trying times. God bless you. Well, you just blessed me, Richard, so thank you very much. Every once in a while, I do this thing where I speak into a microphone. I just wonder if anybody's hearing it. So, brother, blessings on your day, and thank you very much. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, I'm doing the patience thing today. Been sitting in Faultville Yard for 2.25 hours waiting on a trailer, and it may be another 45 minutes to an hour before I get one. Hang in there, brother. Nashville's coming. Missy from Faultville says, beautiful. You're the only human I've never met that has made me cry this much. Well, have mercy. I don't know if that's good, but anyway, thank you, Missy. John N. from Huntsville, Alabama says, John N., by the way, he's one of our many Johns. So we got John, we got John M., we got John S., we got John N., as in November. He says, by the way, John N. in Huntsville again, best dwelling for squatters is a jail cell. What a great quote from the governor. Yeah, I saw that. So Governor Ivey signed the anti-squatting bill today, and her comment was the best residence for a squatter is, or best dwelling for a squatter is a jail cell. There you go. Kimball from Harvest says, Phil, it's true that our God, our Heavenly Father, is with us in our deepest trials and tribulations, but it is through these that we come to know him and in no other way. Kimball from Harvest. Thank you, Kimball. And then the original John from Huntsville says, Phil, amazing monologue, definitely one of your best. Big Rig has earned a 10 extra credit points for his spectacular Taco Tuesday sound effect. He says, also, I just want to say, I think God does things that may seem like at the moment he doesn't care about us, so we'll have reason to call on him for help because if bad things never happen, there's really no need for there to be a God. Well, there's that. I would think, though, I would add to that, John, that he's a loving God. I mean, like, you know, it's kind of like every once in a while as a parent, you recognize there might be a little need for some tough love. But for the most part, I have no desire to have seen my kids ever experience pain. If I could have kept their life pain-free, I would have. But anyway, good stuff, man. Great crowd. Let's get her done. Coming up here in a few minutes, we're going to have Malia Stevens on. It's not part of my dippers. So she and I were texting back and forth today. She said that she heard that House Bill 167, the porn filter bill to protect kids, is potentially going to come to the floor today. Don't know yet. I look at it and go, why would it not? Why would it not? And State Senator Clyde Chambliss is the bill sponsor. Clyde supposedly has enough clout to get this thing to the floor. If it doesn't happen, it's because they didn't want to. And let me just say this, too, with regards to a Republican supermajority. If something doesn't happen when you're a supermajority, it's because you didn't want it to. Just saying. There's no other excuse. You didn't have to have all of the Democrats to be able to help you. You didn't run out of time because you owned the time. You owned the calendar. You can tell them what to put on the calendar or what not. So if they don't get it done, it's because they didn't want to. But I'm praying they will. I think it's going to be good. And we'll have Malia Stevens on here momentarily to talk about it. And then right after Malia, we'll jump on into lawfare. Wow, man, the Trump trial, good Lord, it got salacious today. So, yep, porn star Stormy Daniels, so much extraneous content to her testimony, you can imagine, that the judge said, even the judge who we don't like, Judge Mershon, he said, all right, that's enough of that. No, even he said, stop. We don't need those details. That has nothing to do with this case. All right, good for him. All right, we're going to come right back. Malia Stevens will be on the line. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Like covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. Y'all, I'm talking about Alabama. I mean, we go like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, we're going to go straight to the phones. This is not part of the Triple Dipper for the day. This is we're gonna chase a little rabbit trail, but it's an important one. And so Malia Stevens is a licensed professional counselor. She has been on this show at least 2, maybe 3 times. A couple of them most recently, once while she was in studio with us for a couple of weeks ago. And she has been just working so hard on a piece of legislation that, in my opinion, is one of the biggest pieces of low-hanging fruit I have ever seen. Like, why would you not? But it's House Bill 167. And so without me just saying it all, let me just bring her on right now, and let's talk to Malia Stevens about where we are and what that bill does as a reminder. Malia, how you doing?
Hey, Phil, I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for keeping me updated. And you and I were texting this morning, and you made known that of course it's the last couple of days of the session, and that we may have it to the floor, but still an uphill battle in some ways. But do me this, Malia, remind the audience quickly what the bill is so that they can refresh their memory and then go from there.
Certainly. So we're talking about HB 167, the Children's Device Protection Bill, and it simply requires device manufacturers who make commonly used devices such as tablets and smartphones, which there's 3 companies, Google, Apple, and Amazon, to simply turn on the existing filter when the phone is activated or the tablet is activated for a minor in the state of Alabama. It's a very simple software update. They do this with Chromebooks now after a tremendous amount of pressure. Apple does it with certain devices for 12 and under. It's a very simple thing for them to do. This bill passed unanimously in Utah a few weeks ago. It passed unanimously in the House again this year, as it did last year with strong bipartisan support. And we made it through Senate committee, and people across the state of Alabama, concerned parents, grandparents, teachers, they all want to see this pass because they're seeing the epidemic of the pornography health crisis, affecting our children. And we want to see this provide a layer of protection for kids. It's very simple. It's not costly. And we're right at the same place where we were last year, where it's made it through all the way through the House unanimously, made it through Senate committee. We are waiting for the final vote. Last year, it was not allowed to go on the floor for a final vote, even though we had the votes for it to pass. So this year, we're kind of in the same position of waiting to see if Senate leadership is going to listen to the outcry from parents and grandparents, or if they're going to listen to pressure from lobbyists representing the interests of big tech and the porn industry.
Yeah, so let me just jump on that for a minute. I made a statement before you came on the air that when you have a Republican supermajority, that if something doesn't pass, it's only because they didn't want it to. I mean, there's really there's none of this. Well, we didn't have time, or we didn't have the votes, or we didn't have the Democrat support. You don't have to have it. You own the calendar. You own the ability to put things on the floor, and you own the supermajority necessary to get the right amount of votes if you want to. And right now, we're just basically fighting the lobbying effort.
Pretty much that's what it boils down to. And the lobbyists, unfortunately, as I shared on your show previously, in that last hearing, they made it very plain what their agenda was. They said, we are all for consumer protection as long as it's not at the expense of economic progress. We have gotten Google and Facebook to come to this state. We don't want to give them a reason to leave. We don't want to make them angry. Essentially, if you pass this bill to protect children in Alabama, you might anger these companies and we might get punished, which is what is, is very disturbing to say. They boil down, this is what our priorities are, is profit over protection for consumers, in particular protection for kids. But having worked with the National Center on Sexual Exploitation since 2013, that does not come as a surprise to me, because having seen our nonprofit go toe-to-toe with pornography companies, with big tech companies, they do not look out for the best interest of consumers at all. They look out for the bottom line. And the only way they're going to be forced to do the right thing is through, pressure through regulation like this. It's the only way they bend. So, and so that's basically what we're fighting between, is the interest in the protection of children or profit in the interest of these companies.
Well, and I guess I got to go back and reiterate something that just really galls me, because when I first heard about this, I thought we were talking about something that had to be downloaded by the consumer or downloaded by the factory, but it's not. This is something that's already on the systems. It's simply a matter of turning it on when the item leaves and goes into the hands of the consumer, right? I mean, it's not like you're asking them. I mean, the idea that it's a burden on commerce or economic development is really just kind of a fallacious argument.
It is. It's completely fallacious in the sense that our bill explicitly states telecommunications companies like Verizon and AT&T are not held liable. Retail shops are not held liable. It has zero to do with them. And even the big tech companies are not held liable if there's some kind of error in terms of, they'll say, oh, well, what if something squeaks through the filter and the child is exposed? It doesn't matter. The only thing they're asked to do is turn on the existing filter, the adult content filter that they have, because it does a pretty good, decent job. And we're looking at protecting little children from early accidental exposure, because research says that that's how they stumble upon it. And so all we're asking for is a simple software update that would make it default on instead of off. Right now it's defaulted off. All they got to do is switch it to defaulting on. We've talked to software engineers. They said this would be easy for these companies to do within a matter of hours. And we've got biometrics, geolocation. They know exactly what your phone's doing, where you are, how old you are. It's a pretty simplistic thing for them that doesn't cost a dime. They just lose access to our kids. Yeah. And they don't like to be told what to do.
Well, that's it. They don't like to be told what to do. That's a big part of it. But there's so many examples in the law of where we do this kind of thing already. Like for instance, there's a thing called the attractive nuisance doctrine. I'm going to get in the weeds for a second, but as an attorney, I can just tell you there's a thing called the attractive nuisance doctrine. Like the example is, if you have a pool in your backyard and kids from the street can see it and you don't have a fence around it, it becomes what they call an attractive nuisance. It attracts kids over to it, and they can get injured because you took no steps just to put a mere fence in front of it. And so if you can have physical liability for someone failing to put a fence around their pool, why can there not be just the requirement then that we put a fence around pornography on the phone? That's all we're talking about doing here. And we're not even asking them to buy the fence. That's what's so crazy.
Exactly.
Well, so AT&T and Apple and Google and Amazon, they don't want to play this game, and they've hired the Jones Group, which, by the way, the Jones Group, Greg Jones is a nice guy. I know him. He's a lobbyist. He's been doing it for a long time. But I'll be honest with you, he never used to have any sway with the Republicans. Never. And I'm surprised to hear that he's the lead on this and he's getting traction with the Republicans. But right now you believe you have the votes, but they're hiding behind the leadership. Is that what I understand?
Yes, sir. It seems as though the majority of the Senate want to see this pass. We've talked to a number of them, and we know it would pass if it's given a chance. But we're waiting, exactly like we were last year, to see if the two Senate leaders who basically write out the calendar, if they're going to prioritize it. And we hope they do. There's some indications that they might, but we don't want to be disappointed like we were last year, where it was allowed to die, this bill that's so crucial to moving our state forward to protecting children, that we've worked so hard to get to this point, and is passing in, progressing in other states, that Alabama's children would be left behind because one or two people are listening to the interests of, lobbyists and special interest groups over what's best for kids.
And here's the other thing, too, Malia, and I think we may have said this when you were in studio the other day. When we passed pro-life legislation and made Alabama a decidedly pro-life state, we were told, you're going to run businesses out of the state. Military installations are going to close down. It's going to be horrible for economic development. And it has not made a bit of difference. Not a single. Because companies recognize that their goal is to make widgets and sell services. And the idea that one state does some few things slightly different usually just means good, healthy living in that state.
Right, exactly. And if they really are the kind of industry that says, we're so hell-bent on not having any kind of regulation at the expense of, we're not worried about protecting kids. We just want our bottom line, and we're going to take advantage of Alabama's children. I think a lot of Alabamians would be like, if you're threatening to leave us because we want to protect our kids, then fine,
Yeah.
because that kind of influence is not good for our state. If they're going to throw their weight around with leadership and try to influence our culture in that direction, I don't think any common sense person wants to see that happen, because you can have consumer protections and economic growth. They should go hand in hand. They don't have to be opposed to each other.
No, they don't. You're right. It's so right. And you've done an amazing job. You and Leah Garner and some of the others that are all working the issue with you. Let me ask you this: procedurally speaking, they're probably going into the chamber. Well, they may have already gone in. Are they in right now?
I think they were in when I checked a little bit ago.
Okay.
They were in.
So if that's the case, and they already have at least the first calendar published, are you aware? Is it on the calendar, or is it on a second calendar for the day? Do you know?
I have not been told that we have any clear answers yet as to whether it or not. But I'm praying. A lot of people across the state are praying that they will honor, what they're indicating that it will be on for tomorrow. But if listeners would like to help us out and just send an email to President Pro Tem Greg Reed, Senator Jabba Wagner, who set the calendar, and any other senators that they have in their district that they could reach out to urge them to support HB 167, it would definitely only help us. So, our email was good.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I'll give out the phone number right now. The phone number, if you want to call your senator, is 334-261-0800. That's 334-261-0800. Call them and tell them you want that bill on the calendar, House Bill 167. All right, Malia Stevens with Wellspring Christian Clinic. If you hear anything different, just text me and I'll update it on the air, okay?
Sure will, Phil, and I'll come back on and let you know the outcome so we can assess.
Okay. Thanks, Malia. All right. Blessings on you. See you. Bye-bye.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
All right. That's I mean, she's doing amazing work, and I'm very hopeful. But let's take the break there, Big Rig. We'll do that. We'll come back. We'll make it a clean break. We'll come on back, and we'll jump on into the First Dipper Lawfare. Oh, my gosh. It's been a day full of Stormy Daniels right now. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world, one soundbite at a time. All right, we're going to jump on in. That was a great report from Malia, and we'll just keep tabs on that. Malia Stevens with Wellspring Christian Clinic. Let me jump on into Dipper number one. Lawfare. Lawfare. That's an amazing word that I guess was coined here most recently. I don't remember ever hearing it before. I've been practicing law for over 20 years, and I'm like, lawfare. Never heard of that, but it so fits. You're conducting warfare, but you're abusing the halls of justice. You are taking the law and making it a weapon. It's lawfare. Well, okay, so it's Trump. I mean, you know where I'm going with this. It's the Trump cases. Cases, plural, like dang. And they're coming from all different directions. There's civil, there's criminal, there's state, there's federal. It's on and on and on. Now, liberals would love you to believe, well, there's smoke, there's fire, there's lots of fire. We smell lots of smoke. Well, maybe it's y'all puffing on your victory cigars a little early that you're smelling, but the reality is there's no way in the world anybody else in the world would have been able to stand up under this. I mean, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and I totally get that. What I'm saying, though, is the only person I can think of right now who is uniquely suited to completely resist all this and continue to bounce back from it is Donald Trump. He's got the assets to pay the lawyers. He's got the plane to fly himself around if he needs to. He's got his own, ability to, live wherever these trials are for the most part, and he's got the ability as a matter of self-will to continue fighting it, continue standing up. It's unbelievable. This has been soul crushing, and I believe that there are a lot of people who would not have been able to make it this far. You know what? 99.99% of people would not have been able to make it this far for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is the amount of resources he is having to pour into having attorneys to fight these things. But the crazy thing is, man's winning. Right now, he is winning. Now, am I saying we're done? No, I am not. He's got some uphill climbing yet to do. But right now, y'all, he is more than holding his own. His attorneys are wearing them out. And the Supreme Court of the United States has truthfully seen through some of the shenanigans and has been able to put some of it to rest right away. It's been epic. I mean, think about what all we have here. We've got, of course, the case he's in right now that I'll start off with in a minute. The alleged hush money case that is a state-level misdemeanor that Alvin Bragg's going to create into a federal felony, even though he's not supposed to dip into federal law. Okay. There's that one. That's in New York City right now. Then there's the Jack Smith, special prosecutor, who has got the two cases. One's the January 6th insurrection, and the other one is the classified documents case from the Mar-a-Lago raid. There's things that are happening right now on that one that are interesting, and that is developing as we speak. And then there's Fannie Willis over in Fulton County, Georgia. Fannie Willis. Oh, yeah, she and her paramour loving all that Trump money they're getting for trying this case against 18 people who they indicted. How's that going for her? Well, right now, she's a laughingstock, and she's being investigated by the Georgia State Senate. And then you got, oh gosh, what else? Then you got all the cases where they've been trying to take his name off the ballot. So his campaign is having to fight just to be allowed to continue his campaign. Multiple states, some of whom have already had it handed to them through motions to dismiss or the Supreme Court saying you can't do that. And then you've got the, what's her name, E. Jean Carroll. E. Jean Carroll, who claims that Trump raped her in the back of a dressing area in a department store. I think it's a Macy's, something like 30 years ago. But she just came forward now. And when Trump refused and said some things about her being a money grubber and all that, she sued him for defamation. So he has not been convicted of rape. Thank you very much. There is the claim civilly of sexual assault, which prevailed. Well, he didn't get a fair jury, that's for sure. because somehow or another the jury found this for like $435 million judgment. Y'all, what they just did was signal to businesses everywhere it is no longer safe to be in New York State because they can do this to you. Oh, by the way, too, then you've got Letitia James. Letitia James is bringing her piece from the New York Attorney General's office. And Letitia James, she is working as she can to seize his assets to include Trump Tower. Once again, businesses everywhere are going, holy crap, do I even want to be in New York State anymore? Well, all these things are happening, but where are they now? How's he holding up? How's he staying afloat? I'll tell you all about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studio. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to hour number 2. It's already hour number 2, Big Rig. What'd you do with hour number 1?
I don't know. Time's going by quick.
Gosh, it just like flew.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, listen, we got a lot of stuff to cover, so let me go ahead and jump right on in. Just jump on in where you can and hang on, as the man said. So, lawfare. I just covered a minute ago how many cases there are. In fact, I caught myself at the very end realizing I'd forgotten one because there's just so many of them. Let's talk about the one that's currently on trial today. It's been viewed as the weakest among them. All right, it's been viewed as the most petty of all the cases, and I you know, you would think so, but it's. I've tried a few jury trials in my day, right? I don't do criminal work by intent. I've chosen not to do criminal work, but nonetheless, as a civil attorney, I have done a number of jury trials, and I can just tell you, the idea that one of them is lasting 5 or 6 weeks. Good Lord. And it's largely believed that it's partly dragging on, and they're bringing in witnesses which are not entirely helpful, but it's dragging on because it's a great way to keep him off the campaign trail, except that it's not. The man's been getting some amazing FaceTime in and around New York City and then just flying out in his own plane to go campaign on the days off. He may actually be more rested now than he would have been otherwise. I don't know. But here's the thing. The witnesses they've been bringing in have not been entirely helpful. Now, of course, if you go read the liberal media, you're going to go, it was great. They just tore Trump up. Not really. I'm trying to be objective. I mean, I've got one piece by Andrew McCarthy that I'll get to later in my time here, where he's apparently not a Trump fan, but he's been doing a great objective job of looking at things. I'm trying to do that myself as an attorney, and I look at it and go, I don't know if that witness was helpful to you, Mr. Prosecutor. Why'd you put that one up? Well, okay, first of all, I think there are grounds for appeal in this case left and right, not the least of which is the idea that there has been, and I don't believe there's any consent to the jurisdictional aspect of whether Alvin Bragg can go after a federal crime by tying it to a civil or to a state level misdemeanor. Anyway, never seen that one. It's new and different. He's also trying him on 34 counts, 34 separate counts of falsifying business records. No, there were 34 checks written for the exact same thing. He's calling each one of them a separate count. Oh, so basically, if he fails on one of them, all 34 go out. It's all or none here, dude. The question revolves around, did Trump have an affair with this Stormy Daniels? You know what? That's actually not a crime. I hate to say it. I'm not excusing that kind of behavior, but Trump has denied it from day one. Just keep that in mind. Trump has denied it from day one, and it's the porn star. The porn star is the one saying it. So the porn star who's made a lot of money off of this is the one saying it. The man she's accusing has denied it from day one. The question becomes, though, did he use campaign dollars to cover this up to benefit his campaign? Well, that's a crime? Well, except that he didn't list it as a payment on his campaign finance reports. Oh, that's what we're talking about? Yes. The question is, how were the payments made and were they a legitimate expense of the campaign? Trump is saying, no, it wasn't. It was money that I paid to my attorney as a large retainer for him to do things for me. He chose to try and help bury a story because it was embarrassing to me personally. Personal and campaign are two different things. A campaign is considered like a business in the eyes of the law. And just like you have a limited liability company, an LLC, it shields you from personal liability. He's trying to say, and I think he's got a pretty good case, that, look, I didn't want my wife to be embarrassed by this porn star showing up and saying things happened that never happened. But I'm going to pay her some money to go away so she won't embarrass my family. And when you're a billionaire, people come after you all the time. I don't know if Trump did something wrong in this case in terms of having an affair. I don't know if he had an affair. I don't know. But I do know this. That's not the crime he's alleged to have committed. The crime he's alleged to have committed is paying off the accuser the wrong way. Wow. I will tell you this, in the practice of law, a non-disclosure agreement happens all the time. I settled a case for one of my clients on a defamation claim, and it involved basically them having to pay my client, at the same time agreeing to never disparage him again. It was a non-disclosure, non-disparagement. It happens. It's part of the agreement. I have never settled a case, because people are always mad at each other. I've never settled a case where you didn't have non-disparagement built in. Don't say bad things about me on your Facebook or anything else. Pay them. And I'm paying you, which is considered consideration under the law, so therefore it sticks. Well, not with Stormy Daniels. She can get paid and then come out and try to sell a book and talk about it. How's that work? Well, it's not supposed to. That's okay. She's Stormy Daniels. She's the hero, the porn star hero in the eyes of the press. However, they've had other witnesses, which have not gone great. Stormy Daniels is testifying today. The judge has already shut down part of her testimony because it was going way beyond the pale. It was like nothing that was related to the case. She was beginning to describe things that only a porn star can describe accurately, and say things that the judge had to stop and say, listen, that is not a part of this case, and we're going to stop that line of questioning. Well, good for you, Judge. But then here's the other witnesses. They had a guy named McConney on. McConney used to be the Trump organization, not the campaign, but Trump's business organization. He was like one of the chief financial officers. He's the one who was told to write the checks to the attorney, like $35,000 a month. Dang, that's a pretty good retainer. Maybe in New York City they do things different, but down here in Alabama, $35,000 a month never happens. Anyway, $35,000 a month to the attorney. He was asked why you did that. He was told it was a campaign, or not a campaign, but a business expense for legal fees. Oh, so nobody said anything about the campaign? No. Did you use a campaign checkbook? No. Who signed the check? Donald Trump. What kind of account did it come out of? His personal account. Oh, well, now wait a minute. That sounds like testimony that didn't help the prosecution. But it was a prosecution witness, y'all. They keep putting these people on, and you go, okay, you're supposed to know what they're going to say before you put them on the stand. Did you know he's going to say that? And you still put him up there? And then they had Hope Hicks. Hope Hicks is a former communication specialist who worked for the Trump campaign. Her testimony has not been entirely helpful, but it depends on who you ask. Hope Hicks trashed the star witness who's coming on later, the convicted felon, former attorney Michael Cohen. She said he liked to call himself Mr. Fix-It, but only when he broke it first. Oh. She also said that unequivocally in her testimony, I don't think, she said, she was asked, did he do this, did he pay her just to protect his wife, Melania? She said, absolutely. I don't think he wanted anyone in his family to be hurt or embarrassed about anything on the campaign. He wanted them to be proud of him. So what he's saying there is it was a personal matter. He didn't want his family being embarrassed by these claims. Okay? I'm trying not to be like, granted, I'm for Trump. Okay, make no bones about it. But I'm trying not to be biased here. I'm trying to use my lawyer eyes to see this thing. But so far, I am not seeing testimony that's damning. Now, what's interesting is Hope Hicks said all that. And when you go to Newsweek, they've got a whole different spin on it. Hope Hicks made it much harder for Donald Trump now. Why? Because she testified that she was there when payments were made. Okay. But she testified they were made for a different reason. So if I've got somebody walking around with me when I was running for the state Senate, but I said, hey, man, let's stop by the law firm. I got to pick something up. And while I'm there, I do legal business. I've stepped away from my campaign for a minute and done something legal or personal. It doesn't mean Hope Hicks couldn't have been around. But they're saying, well, because she was present, it makes it a little harder now. Okay. But then they do admit in Newsweek that, well, she did testify before that she was unaware of the deal, and so the value of her testimony is going to be limited. But they put her on the stand anyway. That's the way this case has been going so far. Not a whole lot of traction for Alvin Bragg. But the question is, what's the jury going to do? because that's been one of the biggest concerns is Trump does not seem to get a fair shake from New York juries. Look what happened with that E. Jean Carroll case where they got a $400 some odd million judgment for something she says happened 30 years ago. I don't know, man. Listen, I know Trump's not perfect. I know he's not. I don't worship him whatsoever. There are times when he aggravates me. But I will tell you this, what we're watching with these cases is wrong. Keep in mind that the Alvin Bragg case, that the way he's trying to get Trump, the way he's trying to get Trump is by tying him back to a federal campaign finance violation. Trump wasn't running for state office. He made his payments off a federal race, if at all. But what he's saying in his defense is he really just made them out of his personal account for legal fees. He didn't know his attorney was going to run down there and do that. But even if he did, it was just to stop his family from being embarrassed. Alvin Bragg, on the other hand, is doing all he can to prove this is a federal campaign finance violation. And I believe that alone is going to wind up being an appealable issue. But will he be able to do it? Will the jury look at it and go, this is a big, big deal, or not? Because keep in mind, Trump's going to be allowed to testify, or his side is, that the feds had already reviewed this and decided there was nothing there. So federal prosecutors had already reviewed the exact same thing, and they decided there was nothing there for them to prosecute. But yet, Alvin Bragg, paid for by George Soros in his campaign, is going to bring in a porn star and a convicted felon attorney to put on a case to prove that what the feds didn't see, he sees, and see what happens. That's where we are with that case. It's a total nut roll right now. Listen, I got more on this. We're gonna drop in on Fani Willis after this one. Yeah, Fani Willis. Oh my gosh, she's in hot water right now. Personally speaking, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. I mean, like saving the world one soundbite at a time. I got a phone call. Jeffro from Indiana. Man, are you moving yet? How you doing, buddy?
I'm crossing the Tennessee River right now, so
Wow.
I'm actually moving, thank goodness.
Well, that patience paid off. You finally got you a load and you're heading out, right?
Yep, I'm headed back so I can do my 16-hour plus day today.
Well,
nice.
what you think about, man? What do you think about all this lawfare?
Hey, how can you? Isn't it in the prosecutor and the judge and everything's supposed to be non-biased and stuff, and it's supposed to basically said they was going to go after Trump and everything, and then now they're doing it.
Well, the prosecution doesn't have to be non-biased. They believe he's guilty, or they wouldn't bring the case. The judge, though, he's supposed to be the impartial arbiter of the truth, and that's not always proven to be the case.
Yeah, but like Fonnie and all them, they would run as, I'm going to get Trump. I'm going to find something to get him, but that, just whatever. It's we're going to get you, So how in the world can you?
No.
Is there any law that says, you can't go out, like say, if judge got together and I didn't like you, and then we're just going to prosecute you to death, I seen you jaywalking, so we're going to, anything.
Yeah, well,
it's crazy.
So a lot of times these things fall into places that in terms of the law that the average person doesn't see, because they're called the rules of professional conduct, or the model rules of professional conduct. And so attorneys are bound to these ethics rules, and so are judges. And in Alabama, for instance, I don't know what they do in New York, but in Alabama we have a thing called the JIC, the Judicial Inquiry Commission. They actually handle complaints against judges, and they'll disqualify a judge or take him off the bench. And then you're allowed to appeal. If you can show that there was bias and that you did not get a fair trial because you were treated improperly, you can get it's not just the evidentiary issues. You can use bias as or prejudice, they call it, as a means of appeal.
I believe there's a lot of prejudice going on right now. But if I was Trump, I'd be looking at these people saying, when I get in here, my judicial branch is going to be going through everybody's stuff with a fine-tooth comb. Because I know Maxine Waters and all these Menendez and all the Biden stuff and everything, if you can't tell me that they haven't used campaign funds to pad the pockets of everybody that they shouldn't have been doing, if that's the case, we need to give them a little exam too.
Maxine Waters,
and I would just come out and say it.
Maxine Waters is one of the worst. I mean, her daughter just makes hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then you got what's her name in the squad? Oh gosh, I've forgotten her name now. Cori Bush. Cori Bush pays $97,000 to her boyfriend for so-called "quote unquote" security. And then she defunds the police, but she's all for paying her boyfriend $97,000 of campaign funds for security. So it's nuts, man. But hey, like Dale Jackson always says, it's good to be a Democrat, right?
Yeah, it's very good to be a Democrat. Of course, it's not too good down here in Alabama because most everything. You don't get elected down here unless you're in the right district, I guess.
Yeah, you got to pretty much live in just the right spot to little blue dots around the state, but.
Yeah,
but you would never know.
It was Indiana's primary day, so I did my part and went and voted this morning. So hopefully we can get some good people in our offices too.
So in your part of the state, is it fairly red?
Oh yeah. Well, no. I'm surrounded by a sea of red, and I'm in a blue county.
There's a cure for that. It's called moving.
They voted overwhelmingly for Al Gore, if that tells you anything.
Oh, have mercy.
Yeah.
Well, all right, man. So you cross Tennessee line. Be careful when you get to Nashville, all right?
No, I'm just out passing Huntsville. It's going to be a while.
All right, dude. Well, be careful, buddy. We appreciate you.
Hey,
yeah.
Have you looked at the thing I sent you yesterday? If not, you definitely need to look at 8 minutes in.
I was on a call last night, and I forgot to go back to it. I'll check it out.
It'll blow your mind.
Okay. All right. See ya. Wow, that's right after the break? I didn't even realize. Okay. Well, we're taking a break. Apparently, I'm going to keep this dipper going. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. I'm talking about, man, just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here. I'm talking about Alabama. Y'all, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. We got lots of doings. Hey, I got to tell you, though, before we go any further, real quick, you guys be aware tomorrow the next round of the new video podcast comes out. So The Right Philosophy is the new video podcast. It is one of a series of different kinds of podcasts that we expect to be putting up here in the very near future. I'm in negotiations right now with some other folks that will be providing content. But yeah, The Right Philosophy is out, and it is we're real proud of it. I'm filming it at my house. It is kind of picture what you gather from my monologues, and I speak that way. But this is all video based, and you can find it right now on our website. We'll YouTube it here shortly, but it's currently hosted on the website. Go to the rightsideradio.org website, rightsideradio.org. Click on the podcast tab, and there's one right there. You'll see my smiling face, and it says The Right Philosophy. Click on that. It takes you to the landing page for that one, and just choose. And I think it's number 5 is coming out tomorrow. Anyway, pretty stoked, and appreciate y'all checking it out. I got a bunch of text messages. Let me just see what in the world we got going on. Somebody who I don't know. Oh, we got a brand new one on the top of the line. If you plug her in, Christy from Harvest says your opening monologue today was very encouraging. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Christy. I appreciate it, and welcome to the text lines. You just joined the thousands who are in it, and we're glad to have you. Harris from Athens says, for all the legal prostate exams that President Trump has suffered, show me one Democrat that wouldn't be put in jail in 10 minutes if all were fair. I'm saying, man, but you know what, though? None of the Democrats are going to face those kind of charges because, dang, it's good to be a Democrat. Chuck from Oneida, Tennessee says, no matter what is said or done in favor of President Trump, I'm afraid the jury will find him guilty. If I were a betting man, I would bet they've already made up their minds. It's a shame, and I pray I'm wrong. Yeah, I know, and I pray that too because I think trying to be objective here, looking at it, I think the one where he has the most potential trouble is the case regarding the classified documents. But even still, his greatest offense is the number one person in the world who is allowed to declassify those documents is Trump. But the question is, did he follow procedure and did he do it correctly? And I don't know the answer to that because I'm not privy to all the details. But to me, that is the one that I find the most disturbing in terms of its potential. But nonetheless, we're spending 5 weeks hearing about Stormy Daniels. JP from Priceville says, even though oh my goodness, JP, you wrote me a book, bro. I can't read that whole thing. JP, I will come back to it, and I appreciate the super duper long text, and I'll have to get there and see what's going on, man. But it looks like you got something going on in faith, and I appreciate that. So I'll try and check that out. David from Athens says, if Stormy Daniels was paid hush money to the affair to keep the affair secret, couldn't Trump sue her for breach of contract? Yes. My brother David from Buc-ee's, I do believe that is exactly, I mean, I do believe she has probably violated the terms of her non-disclosure agreement. That's a given because she has disclosed. So I don't know what to say, but this ain't over. You know what? Now that I say that, hang on a second. Yes. As a matter of fact, Trump's already gotten a judgment against her. Big Ray, will you look that up? Right? Trump judgment Stormy Daniels. And see if you can find it. I think he got a $100,000 judgment against her, probably for violation of the agreement. I'd forgotten all about that. JT Lacey Springs says, monologue 2 winters ago an Amazon package was misdelivered. Our names and mailbox number not even close to similar. They called saying the box was there and could drop by. No need, I said, I have extra. I asked how they were doing. The wife was ill with the flu. I told them in that box is cold medicine and they could have it. And reluctantly they accepted. Did UPS make a mistake? I think not. Later, I complimented the driver for his mistake. JT, that's a cool story, man. Thank you for sharing. All right, listen, jumping back into the dippers here. Then did you find that case, by the way? It's out there. I know it is.
I found something about, what was it, the $130,000 payment for her silence?
Yeah, that's the payment, allegedly. But there's also, I believe Trump already got a judgment. I'll find it in a minute, but if you can't find it, just let me know.
I'll try to find it.
Fannie Willis. How about this one? The Georgia case. Fannie Willis, bless her heart. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis is under the spotlight again, according to Red State. Dateline this past Saturday. A Georgia State Senate Special Committee held its third hearing looking into allegations of conflicts of interest and potential misuse of public funds by Fannie Willis. The committee was formed after the multiple scandals that broke over Willis's relationship with her special prosecutor in the Trump election case. Yeah, so to back up that, Fannie Willis indicts all God's children. I mean, everybody. Everybody who ever breathed about Trump at a rally got indicted. Well, truthfully, Trump plus 18 more. But she indicted his attorney. She indicted his friends. She indicted his, campaign workers. She indicted people who disliked him. Anyway, all that to say, Fannie Willis, who is, above reproach. I mean, she's doing what she's doing for the good of the people. Don't you know? She's Fannie Willis. Turns out Fannie Willis, who actually campaigned, I saw the video, no lie. She campaigned on the idea that she won't sleep with her subordinates like her predecessor did. Oh, really? Well, we know now that she did. In fact, she paid him a lot more than she paid anybody else. Really? And he had no experience in criminal prosecution. Oh, wow. Much less one against the former president of the United States. Huh. He was a divorce attorney, but he was her boyfriend. So he got paid six figures, like a lot of six figures, like $670,000, something like that, to be a part of the team against the 18. And Fannie got found out. And now a Georgia State Senate special committee has been formed to investigate her and to see whether or not there is wrongdoing that could remove her from office. Wow. But just so you know, Fannie's still making it about race. Of course she is. That's Fannie. Isn't it interesting? We've got a bunch of African-American DAs, and now we need Daddy to tell us what to do, she told a community this past week. Yeah, okay, that's a cheap shot, Fannie. You got caught sleeping around with your boyfriend. Deal with it. Own your problems. You know what I'm saying? All right. How about this one? Jack Smith. I'm in the lawfare thing. Y'all, it's everywhere. Everywhere you look, you can't swing a dead cat without finding something about Trump getting sued, or Trump getting tried, or Trump being brought up on charges, or Trump having to deal with campaign finances, or Trump being told he can't be on the ballot. I mean, it's just unreal. But here's a couple of things about that one that I told you was the one that I thought was the scariest of all of them. Jack Smith, special counsel, appointed by Merrick Garland, to investigate the January 6th insurrection. That's not going very well right now, by the way, because the Supreme Court may decide that Trump had immunity, and we don't know yet. But nonetheless, that case is being delayed while the Supreme Court considers the question of Trump's immunity. But then there's also the question of his keeping classified documents. Were they classified? Apparently. Were they secured, and were they left in places where they could be found by the general public? I don't know. But the other question is, did he declassify them? Because under the law, the President of the United States can declassify anything he deems necessary. Anything. So he had boxes of documents. Biden had some stored in his garage next to his green Corvette, and he had some left in a broom closet at the Penn Biden Center, and then he had some in his study, and he was literally like Johnny Appleseed, floating documents everywhere. Trump had them in boxes at Mar-a-Lago where there's Secret Service and locked doors. But nonetheless, he's being brought up on charges. However, we've just found out two things. Number one, Judge Eileen Cannon, just today, has suspended one of the deadlines in the Trump documents case because Jack Smith, his team has admitted, we didn't do a good job handling the evidence. Excuse me? Yeah, we may have mixed some of the boxes up. You did what? And now they got to go through and figure out what's there. Has anything been removed? Is this the way it used to be? They don't have good, what they call chain of custody on the contents of the boxes. That's a huge deal. As we practice law, there's a thing called spoliation of evidence. It's where you've basically allowed things to get ruined, and now you're trying to pretend that it's still okay to admit it in trial. Well, is that prejudicial? Has somebody mishandled it? Do we know who had it in the interim? Did somebody sneak in there and take a document out or put a document in? We don't know. Because Jack Smith's people just had to admit to the court, Judge, we told you before that we didn't do that, but apparently we did. Oh, really? And now Judge Eileen Cannon is having to suspend the deadlines in the case, and that thing's going to take longer. Okay, here's the other piece. Supposedly, did I say supposedly? Supposedly, the Biden administration had nothing to do with this whole documents investigation. Hands off, man. We didn't touch it. I was too busy dealing with corn pop. I'm just saying. True story. No joke. Well, apparently they did. We are now learning through recently unredacted documents that Judge Cannon has allowed to get out to the public. 300 pages of evidence, including emails and conversations related to the Biden administration's contact with the National Archives the year prior to documents being seized from Trump's home. For a year, the White House officials were actually involved in discussions with the archives about the same documents that we're talking about. Oh, really? Archive General Counsel Gary Stern sent a letter to Trump's presidential records representatives asking about roughly 24 boxes. There were concerns, he said. Now we're finding out that he was in discussion with the White House. And not only that, at one point he threatened the Trump people by saying, I'm assuming the boxes have been destroyed, in which case I am obligated to report it to the Hill, the DOJ, and the White House. Meaning, I got contact with the White House, and I'll tell them what you did. Well, he'd been telling them all along. So now we're finding out that the documents case had the Biden administration's fingerprints on it. Like we didn't know that, but you know what I'm saying? Now we have a few emails that actually prove it. All right, listen, I'm gonna wrap this thing up when we come back, but there's a couple more pieces to this. But the lawfare is beyond the pale, and I'll be honest with you, it's more than just we need Trump to win because we want him to beat Biden. We need Trump to win, y'all, because if they can do it to him, they can do it to anybody. And we need some of this straightened out in like a big, big way. Let's go and take a break, Big Rig. We'll do it right now. We'll come right back, and I'll expand on that thought. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Wow, making it cool to be a conservative. All right, so welcome back to near the end of hour number 2. And don't forget, top of the hour, we'll take that top of the hour break and come back, and we'll be switching gears. I'll be going into number 3 on the Triple Dipper, by the numbers. And a good friend of mine, John Rogers, who works now with Signal Polling and Analytics, a national pollster, will be on the line to give us the lowdown on where he sees the numbers right now in the presidential campaign. I got a phone call on line 1, so let me grab that real quick. Tom from Huntsville. Hey, Tom, how you doing?
We're doing really well, Phil. How's everybody going?
All good here, man. What's on your mind?
So I'm listening to this documents case, and the last week or 3, give or take, I've been hearing the buzz that this is all a setup, right? So then recently, one of the judges in the case for the documents had unredacted all of the affidavits and all this stuff. And just today on a guy called Benny, what's his name, his YouTube clip, Benny Johnson.
Yeah, Benny Johnson.
Benny Johnson, he interviewed Kash Patel today, who we all know worked for the Trump agency, right? Well, he's telling everybody that those documents that were subpoenaed and then raided and all stuff, they were sent to Trump. They weren't the ones that he had. He had his own documents. You go through the subpoenas and everything unredacted, you find out that he didn't have those. He was told to come get them, take them. When they weren't taken, they were sent to Mar-a-Lago. Then shortly thereafter, raided for said documents that were shipped to him.
Yeah, so you make a great point. I actually looked for that article because I had heard something about that. And the article that I had a minute ago, I thought was going to go down that road, and it didn't quite get there. So I don't know where I picked it up. Maybe the same place you did, but I think maybe Benny Johnson, because I follow him on social media.
Send that link of the episode from Benny Johnson to your text line, so you can, like I said, to the call screener, you can parse it out whatever you wish or whatever. But look for Benny Johnson, say about 7-8 hours ago, and you'll find that story.
Okay. All right, man. I appreciate it. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate you.
You all have a very good day.
You too, man. Yeah, so he's right. So I did see that. And so I'm so glad to hear somebody corroborate it. I was thinking, did I make that up? But no, apparently a lot of the documents that are being used as evidence against Trump, seized in the Mar-a-Lago raid, are documents that Trump didn't take with him. They're documents that the archive said, we need you to come get these. And I don't, either response was he didn't want them, or they said, well, you got to have them. And so they shipped them down there. So the same archives that then helped launch the raid is the one who then first shipped the documents to Mar-a-Lago and then came and raided them to get them. And you look at it and go, what the heck, man? And so I hope that's the case. I hope we're going to find out that some of this was like a setup of the highest order. I don't know. I made the point. I'm not going to get to all my material here. There's no way, and that's because there's so many pieces of lawfare. By the way, Big Rig and I were talking during the break. We did find, Stormy Daniels had a very misguided attempt to sue Trump. And back in 2023, she lost that defamation case. But because of the manner in which it was filed, she was required by law to pay his legal fees. So she's to the tune of like several $100,000 now.
I read it was like
Trump.
$600,000.
Good Lord, 300 of that was just legal fees.
Yeah,
that's.
She said she'd go to jail before she pays it.
Well, she's not biased. She's not going to come up there and testify in the New York case with any bias at all.
Yeah.
She sued him before. She lost. She owes him a lot of money. She doesn't want to pay. She's a porn star with minimal credibility who violated a prior NDA for which she had been paid and then chose to violate it anyway. But she's one of the star witnesses. There you go. But listen, I made the point, and I'll say this in closing on this topic. This is so important to look at its totality. I mean, what they're coming at him from state criminal, federal criminal, special prosecutors or special counsel, you've got probes being made into his campaign finances, probes into his personal finances, trying to seize his personal assets, trying to stop his campaign from being on the ballots. You've got, he and all of his friends and followers being indicted in Georgia. He's being tried at the state and local level in New York. It's just on and on and on. It is lawfare of the highest order. If there was one case, maybe two, we might go, wow, this could be a problem. But this much smoke is more like arson. That's what it is. This is not fire that happened naturally. This is arson. And they're doing all they can to enjoy the flames like arsonists do. But I'll tell you this. I said it before and I'll say it again. If they can do it to him, they can do it to anybody. One of the reasons why we need him to prevail is not just because he's the nominee to beat Biden. He is. He's our nominee. But we also need him to win because if they can do it to him with all of his resources and assets, then Lord, what can they do to the rest of us? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3. Going to go to the phones here, bringing on somebody that I've had the honor of knowing for several years. John Rogers is a native Alabamian, worked with me in politics, and then went on to work in Montgomery. And then from Montgomery, got picked up to work with Signal, which is spelled Cygnal, Signal Polling and Analytics. And he is now in D.C. doing national level work. And they are one of the most reputable pollsters out there. Great reputation, good company, Alabama-based, but now national in scope. And so, yeah, John Rogers, pollster with Signal Polling. How you doing, my brother?
Phil, great to be on with you. You know, it's 181 days until the presidential election, but who's counting? 6 months away, and you know, it feels like the speed is getting ramped up to 9, and you know, it's been a crazy election cycle already.
It has. I think it's made crazier by the personalities, by the lawfare, by the shenanigans. You know, it's by the age of the candidates. I mean, there is so much for y'all to poll right now. I'm fascinated by this. So what I'd love to hear is, whether it be yours or referencing other, you know, major polling outfits, what trends are you seeing? Where are we going with this thing according to what the people are saying right now?
Sure. Well, what we have right now is we have two really well-known quantities, right, in Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And these, you know, voters know who they are. And that's why I think even with the difference, you know, they have the jury trial that's going on in Manhattan, and there, you know, other legal cases surrounding former President Trump. But even with all of that going on the ballot, Trump is still ahead of Biden. In our last national survey, which we just wrapped up a couple of weeks ago, Trump has got a 2-point lead over Biden in the national election. So, you know, these trials that are being conducted, there could be some things that come out that may hurt Trump with certain voter groups, but I don't think it's going to have quite as much of an effect as some of the commentators expected 6 months or even a year ago.
Well, that's kind of been the way it's been perceived. I mean, I know that the mainstream media really wants this to be the downfall. If you watch The View, every time the courtroom doors are opened, somehow another Trump falls 3 points in the polls. But it's not really panning out that way. In fact, it almost seems like it's endearing him to people in some ways.
I think if you're a Republican voter, you already know what you feel about Trump, and even for a lot of those independents, like we said, they already have a pretty well-formed opinion of President Trump. And you know, the issue set that's out there right now, as far as the things that are really mattering to voters, we've seen. So we do a national survey every month, and what we've seen over the last 4 to 5 months is illegal immigration has climbed as a top priority for voters over the last 5 to 6 months. And so inflation is still the top priority for voters. 27% of voters nationally said that inflation in the economy is their top priority. But actually, illegal immigration has now risen to be number 2. And yet 25% of voters who are saying that illegal immigration is their top priority for, men over the age of 55. It's their top priority for Republicans. It's their top priority. But even for independents, it's the second highest priority that they have. And that's an issue that, what's happening now is that President Biden and the White House, they're trying to say, oh, well, there was this bill a month ago that Senator Langford and a couple of other Republicans were involved in, and it was this bipartisan bill, but then other Republicans scuttled it, and it would have solved the border crisis. Voters don't believe that because voters understand that the left has really never been serious about border security.
Well, I think that's a given. I mean, I would hope so. Every once in a while, I get worried about whether or not there's some, what I would call a low information voter out there who's just picking up the sound bites and going with it. But the truth is, I think most people are seeing a story that has now become viral in and of its own right. Every state is now a border state. Every community is now a border community. It feels like, and the level of strain upon the systems is being felt by people left and right. And then when you have things like Laken Riley being murdered over in Georgia, by an illegal alien, you did look at it and go, good gosh, how would anybody miss this story? So you're telling me that's the impactful thing right now in the campaign season.
Right. That's the thing. That's the issue that has really risen to the top. And again, it's not just for Republican primary voters, right? So like we poll all the time in a lot of different states, in congressional races and races for U.S. Senate and obviously the presidential race. And for Republican voters, immigration has been the top priority for a long time. But really what you're starting to see is that you're starting to see a number of independents, especially independents over the age of 50, 55, and those people turn out to vote usually. And that they're a lot more concerned about immigration than they used to be. And that's something that is very difficult for the White House because you have a progressive, young, urban base that on issues like immigration or on issues like the campus protests or the war between, Palestine, Hamas, and Israel, the White House can't triangulate on that. Or I guess they could, but they're choosing not to.
Yeah.
And so they're getting pulled really far to the left. And, if they were just a little bit more moderate on some of these issues, they could pick up some support, but that's not where they're headed at all.
Well, so let me ask you a couple of things about where it does seem like there's other impact that are not truly, impacting Republicans much, but Democrats seem to have been hanging their hat on the idea of abortion rights. And I'm curious where you see that one right now. And then secondly, it's not an issue per se, but there's a third-party candidate, RFK is in there. Who's he hurting most, Trump or Biden?
Well, let me address that second question, which is a question that everybody in the political, sphere is asking, who Kennedy will draw more from. And right now, so in our last national survey, when we did the full presidential ballot, Trump was at 42%, Biden was at 39%, and then Kennedy was at 9%. And really, we think that for Kennedy, that share it might go up a little bit, but we think that that's probably a ceiling for him because he's behaving like other third-party candidates have, where early in the cycle, people will give a lot of consideration, but then as you get closer and closer, as November comes closer and closer, it's more likely that those voters are going to say, I really have a tough time actually pulling the lever for an independent candidate. But to your question, he's polling usually a little bit more Democrat voters than he is Republican voters.
Yeah.
Now, things have shifted somewhat the last couple of months, and so I think if you're Trump's camp or if you're Biden's camp, you can't be really too relaxed about the influence that he could have on the ballot because it's just, he's a pretty idiosyncratic candidate. If you're on X, Twitter, you see people like Elon Musk retweeting his stuff, but then, he'll say something about abortion, and it's pretty clear he's no conservative.
Yeah. Well, and look who he picked for his VP. He picked an extremely liberal from California for a VP. All right, man, what do you think about abortion? Where are we seeing that in the polls?
So this is it's really interesting because this has become a state issue in a lot of ways, obviously, with the Dobbs decision. And there's a number of different states around the country. Right now, it's going to be probably between 6 and 9 states that they'll have some kind of ballot initiative or some kind of constitutional amendment in that state. So a really good example here is Florida. Florida recently passed an abortion ban that would begin at 6 weeks. And so you've had some liberal, pro-abortion, pro-choice groups that have worked hard to get enough signatures on, they've crossed the qualifying threshold for signatures in Florida. So there will be really an extremist abortion access amendment that will be on the ballot in Florida.
Wow.
And in Florida, you have to have 60% of the vote, 60% vote yes, in order to pass that constitutional amendment. So, how it shakes out in Florida, I don't think it's going to affect the presidential ballot that much. Florida is not the swing state that it was during the days of Bush v. Gore, the 2000 election. But in some other states like Arizona, there's a good chance that there's going to be also an abortion access amendment in Arizona that will be on the ballot. And that could be something that would gin up some enthusiasm among some of the younger, kind of more progressive voting crowd for sure. But, it's an issue that is really kind of a state-by-state thing. And there are some states where the pro-life camp is very well organized, and it has done a really good job at saying, like, look, this is what you're being told, but it's actually much more of an extremist amendment than what the pro-choice camp is saying. And then there are some states where the pro-life community is not as well organized, obviously to its own detriment.
Well, that's fascinating. All right, let me ask you this. We got a couple minutes left. What about battleground states? Where is the true battleground? Is Trump going to grab anything that Biden had last time? Is there a battleground that we should be eyes on right now because it could swing the entire campaign?
Yeah, I think the states that you really want to pay attention to are the upper Midwest states of Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Those are three states that you really want to pay attention to. And then a couple of other states that you could throw in would be Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. And I think Georgia, actually, I feel pretty good about that compared to where we were in 2020 or even in 2022. Governor Kemp has done a great job as the chief executive of that state. I think things are in a good position that Trump would win Georgia if the election were held today, and Republicans at the state legislative level would do well. But those other states, Pennsylvania is really key for Biden. If Biden does not win Pennsylvania, it is going to be very difficult for him to win the election because of the way that the electoral college math breaks out. And Pennsylvania, I think it's got 29 electoral votes, if I recall correctly. So Pennsylvania, I would say, would be the state that you really want to pay attention to. Michigan and Wisconsin, there are very competitive U.S. Senate races that are going to be going on in the general election as well that will have an impact on the presidential race. I would say of those states, I think Wisconsin is probably the toughest reach for the GOP and for Trump, but it's still definitely in play, and that's partly why the RNC is holding their summer convention in Milwaukee. I think it's in June.
Wow. All right. That's just fascinating to me. And by the way, thank you for making time for us today. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna kick off a little bit more material of my own after this next break. But John Rogers with Signal Polling at CYGNAL, Signal Polling. Hey, do me a favor. Tell Brent Buchanan I said hello. All right.
Will do. Phil, always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, John. We'll see you. All right, man. I mean, listen, he is neck deep in it. I mean, the guy is geeking on numbers every single day. And I love the fact that they are nationally known now. I've seen Brent Buchanan has been on Fox News and others. Brent Buchanan is the guy who started the company. Used to deal with him down in Montgomery all the time and talk to him down there. Great guy. Loves the Lord. Good dude. And John Rogers actually ran my campaign. He got into politics right here in Gadsden working my campaign, and now he's up in D.C. doing national stuff. Very cool. All right, listen, we're going to take a break right now. We'll come back and do more about By the Numbers. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making conservatism look good, man. All right, listen, we're doing by the numbers. I just had John Rogers from Signal Polling on to give us a national view. They're polling races all over the nation, so when they combine these things, it's not like they did one poll. And when they start polling, congressional races here and Senate races there and presidential campaign there and even local races in some places, when they do this stuff around the nation, they got some questions that go across the board, and they're able to get a pretty large swath of people to sort of figure where things are. Let me tell you this one. I pulled this off of 538. So 538 is one of those sites you can go to get data. It's very cool. So 538, if you want to see 538.com, you got to spell the words out. 538. But I've got in my hands, I've got a copy of what they call the fave-unfave, the favorables. When you are a candidate being polled, a lot of times they'll look at, there's different parts of it. Sometimes you just hear what's called the top lines. Well, Biden's polling at 42%. You hear those top lines. What you don't usually hear about are what are called the crosstabs. That's when people can deep dive in there. Okay, you see how he's doing with this demographic? Yeah, but that age group, that's a big one. Pick them up. The crosstabs tell you all the nitty gritty. And then you get what's called the fave-unfave. Okay, that's fine. But what are his favorables? How is he doing in the eyes of the people right now? They may be thinking about voting for him, but do they even like him? That's a big deal. Because if you find out their unfave is really, hurting, you can begin to press more of the unfavorable stories and hopefully push that in the other direction. All right, all that to say, Biden's unfave or his favorables are lower than every president since they've been recording this stuff. I mean, I'm talking about going back 100 years. I've got them all right here. That's interesting. By the way, just so you know, at this time in his presidency, Trump was favorable 44%. Biden, 38.1. So Biden's at 38. Trump was at 44 at this time. Okay. George W. Bush was at 47. Okay. George H.W. Bush was at 39, so he's barely, underneath George H.W. Bush. But Jimmy Carter, what we used to think was the worst president in modern history, was actually at 43 at this time in his presidency. Biden is at 38. Then you look around and find a few others. How about Richard Nixon? Richard Nixon, the guy who resigned his presidency, yeah, he was at 53 at this point. Wow. 53, Biden's at 38. And then you go up and take a look at some others. How about this? Barack Obama. Well, that was the administration that Joe Biden was a part of. That was his boss, right? He was VP for that guy. Obama was at 48. Biden's at 38. He is 10 points below the previous administration where he was the number 2 man. How do you do that? How do you say, that was my team right there. We were the Super Bowl champions, and next year you can't even play on the same field? Ronald Reagan, at this point in his presidency, was at 52. Biden's at 38. The only one that he is pretty much tied with, he and Gerald Ford are tied. If you remember, Gerald Ford was a one-term presidency who followed the resignation of Richard Nixon. He had nowhere to go but up, and he couldn't get there fast. But he decided not to run for re-election, and he stepped away. And Biden is polling the same as him. Y'all, Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1953 was at 70%. By golly, Biden almost half of that, 38. That's the numbers. I got more of those when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. I'm talking about Alabama. Y'all, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi. All thrown in just for good measure. Hey, by the way, I got to tell you who else covers a lot of ground. That would be our friends at Southern Immediate Care. So Southern Immediate Care is a chain of clinics that covers, like I said, a lot of ground across North Alabama. Places like Gadsden, Anniston, Atala, 6 more locations around the Birmingham area. Every single one of them open 7 days a week. They will see all ages. I like to say it's from pediatric up to geriatric. They'll see them all. And I will be honest with you, this is who I use personally. It is. And I am proud of it. In fact, I don't use them because they advertise. I was already using them. And I was so impressed with how clean and friendly and professional they were that I went to them and said, would you consider advertising? Because I could absolutely brag on this. And they said, we absolutely will. And so here we are. So yeah, Southern Immediate Care. If you need attention, medical attention, even on a Saturday morning, I tell you what, just look them up, find the location nearest to you, head on down there. And while you're filling out your forms, tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. Southern Immediate Care. So I'm in it's number 2 of the Triple Dipper because it's going to be a 2-dipper day, dude. 2-dipper day. That's 2 days in a row. It's 2 dippers. That's okay. It means we got good dipper content. They were dippers that were slopping over with content, filled up with stuff. I'm still in by the numbers. So just so you know, the deep concern that the Biden administration has for the level of unfavorable ratings that I just read to you a minute ago has clearly given them grounds to get into what we call do no harm mode. That's where they are right now. They're in do no harm mode. Oh my gosh, you can't let the man go out and give a speech. He might do some harm, but he's campaigning. How does he not give a speech? Well, you can't let him speak for long then. Okay, what do you propose we do? Make them shorter. Don't let him get off script. Try not to have those moments where he's walking up on the stage and doesn't know where he is. Make sure somebody's with him at all times. And for God's sakes, would you please surround him with people when they're walking to Marine One so they can't see how he kind of walks like a robot? That's really embarrassing. So all this stuff is happening. Here, it's official now, though. The talking heads are out there. The pundits, the surrogates are now out there saying this is intentional. Townhall.com has a piece. The Biden 2024 playbook was predictable, it says, given the president's penchant for being a gaffe machine. So his staff are now aiming to shorten his speeches, stressing what they call quality over quantity. Well, that's so good. Quality over quantity. Says they're calling it the less is more approach, aiming for quality over quantity when it comes to the president's public appearances. The approach also has the appearance of a strategy aimed at minimizing the potential for him to make mistakes in the middle of a razor-thin election. So they've seen the polls. If he was doing great, if his favorables are so high that all they needed was another rally, don't you think they'd do it? Yeah, but they're not. They're getting into do no harm mode because every time he goes out there, it's a gaffe. This is not, by the way, this is not the kind of campaign that says, we got this in the bag. Let's sit back and do less and enjoy our lead. No, this is called, every time we go out there, we drop a point. Can we please stop? But then you got this. Washington Examiner, corroborating what we just heard from our friend John Rogers from Signal Polling a little while ago. Dateline 2 days ago. A new ABC News Ipsos poll shows Biden and Trump are still neck and neck. Trump leads Biden, though, concerning the 3 topics that are considered to be the most important to the voters: the economy, inflation, and safety from crime. So that's interesting. So when they take things into their averages, when they consider what, surefire voters are going to do, they are finding it very close. Within the margin of error, we like to say. So in polling, you have the margin of error. They may say it's 50 to 50, but the margin of error is plus or minus 2, meaning it really could be 52-48. In other words, there's a swing in there somewhere. But in this particular case, we are literally last Sunday was 6 months from the election. Whoop, whoop. We're 6 months away from being done with this for a while. I hope. 6 months. God help us. But 6 months right now, they're saying this new poll shows 46% for Trump, 44% for Biden. But what that doesn't include is RFK Jr. They apparently did not poll RFK Jr. I question why that would be. 50, if you got 46, 44, I mean, you're literally looking at, well, I guess maybe they did. Maybe they just left I guess they left RFK. Okay, so maybe they did. I take that back. It appears that we may have the numbers, was that 40, 80? Okay, we're right at 90. Okay, there's 10% unaccounted for. I don't know if that was 10% undecided, which often happens, or if we're looking at 10% going towards RFK Jr. By the way, in a close election, that 10% can mean everything. Biden is apparently more trusted than Trump in the polls. Get this. All right, what would you think would be his number one topic? Abortion. They trust him more on abortion. Okay. And they trust him more on topics of health care. Okay. But the things that people care about the most, the economy, inflation, and safety from crime. And by the way, I question this poll because we know for a fact that the number one thing has been border security, and that's not even listed here. So Washington, ABC News Ipsos poll, questionable, but I think it does indicate that Biden knows his unfavorables are not good. Here's a couple more things, though. This is an interesting article. I pulled this one off of Red State. It appears that Biden is having trouble with women. No, not like that. We're talking about he's having trouble with polling with women. It says Joe Biden has not been doing well in the polls. His team seems to be trying to think of all kinds of strategies. The latest was that they were going to cut short his speeches. Yeah. They claimed that less was more, quality over quantity. Okay. But what they're also saying is he's getting ratioed with women. That's interesting. And a part of that is because he's doing things like Title IX protection. He's wiping out women's sports by letting transgenders be in girls' sports as a matter of official policy from his administration. He's also, doing things like, hosting transgenders on the White House lawn and then pretending it's all okay. And women don't cotton to this. They don't want to walk into their locker room and find out that the thing that the president said was okay is actually happening to them while they're in their locker room at the gym. And so, yes, right now what we're looking at is the Biden administration is losing ground with women voters. So right now, Rasmussen came out with a new poll. And if it's accurate, it says that Biden is toast with women, according to this article. It has Trump up with women by 11. Wait, but I thought Trump was the misogynist. I thought Trump was on trial with the porn star. I thought Trump was like evil to women. No, right now what we're seeing is Trump is up with women by 11 over Biden, 47 to 36. That's a whopping difference. And when you factor in all the other people running, Rasmussen says that includes the elusive and exclusive suburban women contingent. It's amazing the demographics they break down for this stuff, but it's true. Last thing, I got a couple more here, and I'll wrap this up. By the numbers, right? We're looking at one here from Gallup. Gallup is saying that confidence in Biden's economic stewardship is at a historic low. You think? And Big Rig and I are sitting here. We know what it costs to buy bacon right now. I mean, all of y'all do. Charlene goes to the grocery store. She comes back, and every single time she'll tell me, "You won't believe." Well, I probably will, but tell me anyway. And it's every time. You can go there and you can have one bag in your hand and it's $75. And you're looking at it going, why? I bought coffee and bread and eggs and bacon. And all I'm doing is making breakfast. And it was $75. Used to be you can go to a restaurant cheaper than you can go to the grocery store. Not no mo. Or vice versa. But no, now it's looking rough. Well, confidence in his stewardship of the economy, not so good. 46% of U.S. adults say they have a great deal or a fair amount of confidence in Trump to do or recommend the right thing for the economy, while fewer say the same of Biden at 38%. He's 46 to 38. Y'all, this is right now, the numbers are trending the right way. All they can hope to do at this particular moment is do stuff like what they did today. Put a porn star on the stand and try to get her to say some salacious things. And apparently they did. I thought the judge had stopped it, but Charlene texted me and said, no, he only stopped it after he got a bunch of stuff in there. It was a smear campaign. It's right up there with, trash talk and negative campaigning. What they're trying to do is create sound bites that they can use to make women not want to vote for him. He hangs out with porn stars. The porn star's a woman, right? She's making a lot of money off this, right? She's getting paid for everything, apparently, right? She broke the contract, right? Do you trust the porn star? Anyway, that's where we are. That is the numbers. That's a lot. Hey, we're going to take a break right now. Last break of the day. We'll do that. We'll come right back. I got some text messages to catch up on. It looks like the update on Israel and Palestine is going to wait till tomorrow, blowing the shofar, but it's a good one. I will bring it back tomorrow. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Like making common sense like a superpower. Hey, I got to tell you, you hear those ads playing during the break, right? Just know this, Rightside Radio, we are a standalone entity. We are a business unto ourselves. The stations you might be listening to us on right now, they don't own us. We actually send them our show. Well, just like any other business, we got to support our operations, and part of the way we do that is by selling ads. So think about it. If you're a right side ruffian and you've got goods and services, well, we've got all our stations combined say we've got way over 30,000 right side ruffians who listen every week. You might want to know you got a major captive audience right here who would love to buy from another ruffian. So if you want to advertise on Right Side Radio, we'd love to have you. You go to the website, rightsideradio.org. There's a place on there where it says advertising and contact. Just send us a message. Lauren from Right Side will be in touch with you ASAP. And we'd love to get you on the team. Rightsideradio.org. Send us a message. Advertise on Right Side. I got a bunch of text messages. Oh, the grades are in. Phil, your fantastic performance earns you an A+, but you did not earn any extra credit points today, which means today's winner is Big Rig with an A++ because he earned 10 extra credit points. Congratulations. I also just want to say, since Big Rig does an awesome job on his Taco Tuesday sound effect, I think you need to have Fried Fish Mondays, and Big Rig can create an awesome fried fish sound effect. We do that just for Jeff from Indiana. Just have the horn going because he finds fried fish.
Yeah. I don't think he's the only one that's going to enjoy that one.
That and the pickled eggs. Mark from Laredo, Tennessee. Polls don't mean much if Democrats pack the ballot box with dead people ballots. There's that. Ballot integrity and election security. That means a lot. Pete from Decatur. Why hadn't Trump sued Daniels for breach of contract since she violated the NDA? He needs to go on a little offense, I think. Well, they were in court. And I believe it was actually a defamation case. He could potentially sue her for breach of contract, I'm supposing. I don't know the terms of their agreement, but here's the thing. At some point, you kind of want to step back and not constantly be in the ring with a porn star. So it may be one of those things where people look at it and go, does the big billionaire really feel the need to sue the porn star? And I get the whole offense thing. Go wear him out. He basically already beat her really badly in that defamation case, so much so that she owes him hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees because of the way it went. Jim from Gunnersville. Thank you, Jim. I have not yet, but thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Joe from Elkmont sent me a link. Says, when you get a chance at 1:42, okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Gary from Decatur says, I can't say I believe this polling is very accurate, as Biden is the worst candidate in recent memory. Obviously, this polling company has been reliable in the past, but I would question the people they are sampling as being true representative of the electorate. I've had many calls and texts from polling entities that I purposely ignore, as too many of them are for donations or a political agenda, and I'm sure I'm not alone. Oh, listen, I'm guilty of the same thing. I'm getting spammed out the wazoo right now on my phone, and a lot of them are like, I'm so-and-so running for Senate in Utah. Would you support my campaign? No. Click stop to end. Thomas from Athens says, since immigration is number one on voter agendas, the how will the $5 billion included in foreign aid law, which enables listen, all right, you're going like in order to process Gaza evacuees directly into U.S. cities like those. Okay, I don't know. I guess what you're telling me here, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, is that we've got Gazan refugees that they're talking about bringing back in, even at a time when illegal immigration is considered to be number one. I do believe it's going to be a really, really, really bad idea for Biden to do that. Not just because it's a bad idea, because it's going to poll as a bad idea. So I tend to agree with you. We don't want to see Palestinians imported. I had a whole thing the other day where I talked about that just being importing crime and poverty. That's all it is. You're importing more crime and poverty. Jay from Hartselle, my hope is that Trump wins these court cases and then is reelected and then takes the high road. Don't go after everyone who's come after him, and show the world how the office of the president should be used. I can understand why he would want his revenge, but it has to stop somewhere. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of folks that are saying, Democrats, you are opening up a whole can of something you don't want to mess with because one day the tables are going to turn. And I would hope that that would not be the case. I would love to see some decorum returned to our politics. I'm all for doing what you got to do to get her done. But right now, the polarization and the lawfare and the cheating and the rancorous rhetoric right now, I'm ready. I'm ready for a break from it. Tom from Huntsville, I got it. Thank you. Jeff from Indiana said, I think Joe Biden should be arrested the moment he's no longer president for stealing classified documents when he was a senator. Clearly had no authority. Well, there you have it, Jeff. Harris from Athens says, thank you, Dems, for being stupid enemies. And then Navy Phil from Athens says, with respect to that classified documents case, Jack Smith was found to have misled the judge. I have seen that case, by the way, just today has been suspended indefinitely. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to be reset. It may be that the judge is going to get back to them on a calendar date to re-engage. I don't think she's dismissing the case. But I think right now, the judge is a bit ticked because the prosecutors in this particular case continue to gerrymander things to the point that they appear to be wasting the court's time. So anyway, more to come on all that. Listen, what an amazing show. All right, we started off today. My monologue, if you missed it, I would encourage you to go to the podcast and grab it. Today's monologue was called God Does Not Waste Time. And I told a personal story in there about why I could not figure out why God would, in my view, drag his feet. But it turns out he didn't. And it made things even all the better in the end. Because his timing is perfect. So if you didn't hear it, you can always go to the website. You can go to any one of the various podcasting places in the world. Big Rig does a great job cleaning up the audio, removing all the advertising, and posting it out there as a podcast every single night after the show's over. And that Rightside way today, the monologue, is called God Does Not Waste Time. And I just want to encourage you, go listen to it. It's something we all need to hear once in a while. And where are we at right now? I mean, we're like at 220,000 downloads now, roughly.
Yeah, 220.
Oh my gosh,
yep.
220! I remember when Boomer and I were doing a push-up and donut eating contest if we were going to hit 120, and
wow,
that's been a while. All right, my friends, you have an amazing night. We're back here tomorrow at 2. We'll see you then.